first like to thank everybody for staying here super late and also coming on a Friday as well. I know I'm tired. I'm sure you all are tired. But I was writing down some thoughts during all of the public comments. And one thing that stuck out to me is we were able to see some of the elementary school students and what the library means to them. And a student named Elias had a joke of the week on there, and he said, "What do you call a person with no body and no nose?" Nobody knows. And I just thought that that was really funny because I was thinking to myself, what do you call a school with no staff? Nobody knows either. And maybe it's like what that Sutter student said, an empty shell. And I actually started to get very emotional. Thank you to that young woman who's her and her father spoke, because it just made me reflect back on my time here at AUSD as well. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, I'm a proud product of this district. I went to Turner Elementary School, Antioch Middle School, Antioch High School, and Prospects. I graduated from Prospects. So just a little bit about that history, though. So at Turner Elementary School, I was frequently in the library. I was a little bit different than most of the kids that I was growing up with. I was like, kind of just different, a little like listen to alternative music or whatever. So I got bullied a lot. So needless to say, I was in the library constantly. And I could easily say, and echoing what everybody said tonight as well, that I would not be the person I am today unless I had somebody in the library at all times at Turner Elementary School helping me choose what books to read, because I was really into nonfiction books, right? And a lot of our library is fiction. And so she would help me find the nonfiction books, order new books, and it just really sparked my love for history and science. At Antioch Middle School, the bullying got even worse. So one story, it's kind of a personal story that I wanted to share, is that I was not only emotionally bullied, but I was physically bullied as well, with violence against me. And there was actually one time where I was jumped, for all intents and purposes, by a group of kids. And instead of running to the administration's office, guess where I ran? The library. Because I was a TA for the library. Every single moment I was in the library. Now, I was really going to come here and ask a bunch of questions about how we came to these cuts, S&C allocation, how the decisions were made, talking about TK to third grade enrollment, looking at data. But sometimes I feel like data does not tell us everything, and I think that it's very apparent tonight that the librarian, the library techs, the custodial staff, and some of these bilingual aides, these are people that are on the frontline staff and who do have a lot of contact with the students. And I think that, if we did look at the numbers and see the ratio in terms of, their position to the amount of students that they impact, I think that it would show that it is an incredibly wide reach. I think that what is somewhat concerning to me, and something that I've actually brought up multiple times in my short tenure here, is that we as a board and really as a district don't have clear goals and clear guidelines on how we make cuts. We have the LCAP, right? But the LCAP is really for supplementary and concentration grant funds, which is not the whole budget. It's about $28 million of a $210 million operating budget. And so the thing is that when we don't have goals, these cuts seem very arbitrary and like they're coming out of nowhere. And as a board member, for me to feel that is very concerning. And so if we are only using our LCAP as our guide for how cuts are made and how we come to these decisions, then goal 1 states that we are going to strengthen the school library program. All school libraries have full-time library media technicians who provide services to students and staff during and beyond school hours on every school day. Now, when we're looking at the FTE and the amount that it is going to be reduced, the way that I understand this is that it's going to, and the way that it was explained to me, is this isn't necessarily translating into actual, it could potentially not translate into actual layoffs, but rather a reduction of hours. But that's concerning to me, because who is going to be the ones working over summer to, catalog all the new books, and when we get new textbooks, and just doing the stuff that you can't do during a normal school day when you have a child in front of you, right? And so again, I was going to get into questioning about how these cuts were made. I was going to try to come to some type of a decision based on that. But after hearing everything you guys said, reflecting on my own experience, and realizing I am one of the kids that got out at Antioch, I am one of the kids that went to community college. I did go to UC Berkeley, graduated top of my class, and came back here to serve my community, that I would not be here if it wasn't for, not, and it's not only just the librarians, the custodial staff, the yard duty. My best friend in elementary school was the nutritional services staff in the lunchroom, and so these are people who are constantly seeing you every day. So I would just strongly urge my fellow board members that rather than making any decision on this tonight, that we need to have a study session and look at where we can make reductions in other places. And and I do want to just dispel some kind of some things that were said as well, because I do agree. Sometimes it's easy to paint things with broad brush, and rocket ship is not. I understand the impact that rocket ship has had, but rocket ship is a symptom of a larger problem and is not the cause of our budget woes in this district right now. The cause is the fact that people in Sacramento think that it's okay to fund prisons more than they fund schools. And so we are the fifth largest economy in the world, and it is absolutely atrocious that we do not fund public schools to the degree that other states do. And so I know a couple of us board members were lobbying in Sacramento. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think that talking about building upon power, talking about, trying to get more money, I think that all of this energy needs to, we need to direct it into a way that we can actually try to secure some more funds for the district. And I would just urge people not to just scapegoat and say, oh, it was that person or that person or that person. But this is just a really larger systemic issue that's going on, not only in Antioch Unified, but across the state. And I think that everybody here appreciates our staff, appreciates our classified staff as well as our certificated staff, but this is just, we can't do this. We need to take a more serious look and figure this out.
Couple of questions because I've been on had this rodeo before. This is a window that I hate because it's before the May revise. It's before we have the opportunity to actually figure things out. It's a window that we have to provide the notice. Is this correct or not correct?
Pursuant to Ed Code, there's a 60-day notice.
Right.
So that's correct. We do have to give notice. If something changes, the board could always change their mind on what they're going to need to do, but we have to build a budget based on what we know today.
And our interim, the budget we're going to approve to make us to year 3 is based on the numbers in this?
In both this and another, there's $4 million that we've identified. Some of that is administrators, some of that is certificated, as well as contracts that we've reduced.
Okay. And we have, at the administration office, we've had positions where people have left, and we haven't replaced them, and we do not plan to replace them.
That's correct.
And how many are those?
Well, we have 3 positions that will become available June 30th, which is why I did not have to do a layoff on some of those. Our associate business services is the position that is posted at $200,000, and I do think we need to fill that. That oversees our business department as well as our M&O, technology, and nutrition services, purchasing, all of those departments. There are 2 coordinator positions that are going to be vacant. Only one of those are going to be filled. And we've also reduced some teachers on special assignment as well as some clerical positions that went vacant down at the district office.
And we're fortunate. I've been here, and when I first got on, Dr. Sims was here. Anybody remembers her? It was horrendous, and we had to lay off teachers, and it was awful. I think we're in a better place. However, you're hearing a lot of competing issues. There's prep periods, there's special ed, there's I started to list as she did, class size reduction, special ed. But I'm going to look at this a little bit differently, and I'm not going to be the most popular person in the room. This is an opportunity for the two unions to get together with the administration and say, how can we find $775,000? They can talk to the principals, maybe look at the school site budgets, as one member said. But we have to be able to balance our budget at the end of the day. I didn't get to be a whole 63 years old by not balancing my budget at home. And we have to do that. It's a primary responsibility of this board. If we do not do that, we are taken over by the state. And we've been there. Before I got elected, we couldn't sell any property for 20 years because at one point we were taken over by the state. I don't want that to happen. I happen to grow up, it's kind of interesting. I went to Turner, Kimball, Sutter, Antioch Middle, Antioch High, and I was a library kid. I was a teenage pregnant mother, and without the library, I'm a readaholic to this day. I have no desire to cut you, but this is a window where we have to make a decision, but it's an opportunity to say, where can we get $775,000? Classified is the last place I want to cut. But right now, this is what we have built into the budget. And I'm going to ask the superintendent and HR and everybody to work together, the unions to work together, the management to work together, and come and find $775,000. But for this evening's job as a board member, I'm going to be voting, and I may be alone, but I'm going to go ahead to do this because to me it gives you the opportunity to continue the conversations. If we just stop at 775, that doesn't solve the rest of our problems. We need our teachers to be able to have the time to prepare for our kids. We need to have, everything that I said. So that's my passion for tonight, and I'm going to apologize up front, but this is my job.
Since I'm the new one on the board too as well, I'm not familiar as to how this process gets done, and I like to see it so that I can see what has to be taken off, what we're comparing it to. I mean, we're talking a lot here at the library, and we're talking about the career techs, but what else is out there that we might not have touched? And so I'm having a problem with that situation, and I guess I'd like to have it more explained. Somebody brought in the issue of vendors. Well, how would that affect our students when we talk about vendors? Is that programs that our students are using? I'm not sure.
We are also looking to, and we have identified contracts that we will be eliminating for next year or reducing. There are some contracts we can't get around. One of the speakers spoke earlier about the item that I have on the consent calendar for the health services. That is intended to get rid of a vendor that we have in the district that would be that we now pay twice the amount of money. So those are things that we're looking at in addition to this. But we had to identify when 85% of our budget is people. It's never an easy decision, but we have to look at all of the ideas.
I understand, and I know that we're just, we have to trust that you're doing the job that we need to know. I mean, that we need to have. But I guess it's also the process of understanding how you got there, and that's the problem I'm having. I trust that you know what has to be done. I trust that we have to do it because of the budget issue. Is the timing has to be done now?
Yes, in order to meet our timeline for the end of the year, we would need to start giving notice as soon as spring break is over, because we do individually meet with every employee that's being impacted, find where there are other positions within the district. On the reduction of hours, if we were to go there, that requires negotiation. So there are lots of things that have to happen. I don't like bringing this at this time any more than anyone else likes to have to look at it. But if we don't, then we would be starting the school year. And then you still have a 60-day notice. And it's very hard to start a school year and then make the changes.
Good.
For each night also is our second interim budget. We must show that we are positive or qualified, or we will risk state intervention. I want the board to be cognizant too that we've identified $3.3 million in addition to this. So this was no easy task. To think that we sat down and just decided we don't like libraries. I mean, that is untenable in my opinion. But to think that this is arbitrary would be incorrect.
Just a quick response to that. It's not, I mean, we were elected because we are trustees of the public trust. And so it's not a matter, I don't mean to accuse anybody of making arbitrary cuts. I think just to echo what Trustee Rocha was saying is that I don't feel confident making this decision when I don't have the information. And I asked Jessica for the Excels and I never got them. So I still have no idea how this decision was come to. And as a trustee of the public's trust, and as a district who's criticized constantly for making arbitrary decisions and having an overbloated district office and an administrative office, we need to act, I personally as a board member need to feel confident in the decisions I'm making, and I do not feel confident in how this decision was come to. Maybe that this does have to be the outcome, I don't know, but I have no idea how this decision was made. So
My situation is I wanted to find out on the timing, and you're letting me know that if we don't do something now, we can't wait for the next. I need to find out.
Yes, and remember that it's not effective until June 30th. So if something changes, we always have time to go back. But in order to hit the deadlines for June 30th, we would need to take action tonight.
Can we ask for an extension?
You have to give 60 days notice. So, and
No,
you
an
have to meet with
extension
them.
for the reports that we have to give the state.
No. That's the state controller's office.
Oh, on the budget, no, absolutely not.
Okay, the second thing I wanted to ask is that when you talk about 2 hours, if we're talking about in a day's time, what is the time of the?
Right now, the hope would be to keep the schools open, but again, it's something
The
that
libraries.
we would be, the
During
library.
school time.
Sorry,
While students are there.
it's something that we would be negotiating. But the hope is to be able to keep the libraries open while students are in school at every school every day, but during student hours. That's the
And
hope that
during
we're
those
trying
hours,
to get
if
to.
they're there, Ms. Romero, they do have their benefits continued.
The
The cuts that
benefits,
you're doing are going to
depending on
keep
how,
them in their benefits.
depending on the outcome of the negotiations, if someone is working more than one site and they stay at 100%, 8 hours, then their benefits continue. But that would mean that some people would not have a job or would be in other positions. If it's reduced to 6 hours a day, again, you'd have to negotiate the impact. But our 6-hour employees in this district do pay a prorated share of benefits. Correct, it's 25%.
Can I just say one other thing too?
Go ahead.
One of the things that we always, sometimes the May revise is a good thing. And the other thing that's happening concurrently is we're negotiating with the teachers, and we'll be negotiating with the classified. There's an opportunity to maybe say for every 1.1% that you get is like $1 million in a raise. So there's opportunities for classified and teachers and management to talk about the other things on the table before. So what I'm suggesting is that we do this because we need this, but we also bring it back in 30, 45 days and have a little more in-depth conversation on what else we've been able to tackle. What are the unions, got together and maybe do it that way. But we do have deadlines we have to make. We have budgets that we have to vote on. But I don't want to just leave this, say, okay, we're going to do this tonight, and then we're not going to look at it again, because the next group is going to come to us and say, let's cut here. We don't want to be cut either, but we have to make some cuts. We have one employee. We trust her to do her job with her team, and if we don't have that trust, then I don't know what to say. We have to let her do her job. She's fiscally accountable, just as we are fiscally accountable. Can't even say it, I'm tired, sorry.
Well, it's not an easy job, I know, and I've been in these situations before in another situation or location. And we're talking about people's life, and we know that. But also we have to look at how can we come together and try to provide at least the least hurt. And I know we want to all take care of our students, and I know that we all are here for our students. And so that's the difficult part. And when you say, it doesn't look like much, 2 hours, it does affect the person that's working in those sites. I know that in a situation where a lead custodian, the title is gone, yes, they don't lose the job, but they do lose probably the income that goes along with that position. So that means but we have good classified people because of our personnel commission being on there. I know how well selected you are and how important you are. And you also have the opportunity to move on to a different direction if you're eliminated, or if that position is eliminated, you still have a chance. It's just a very hard thing to do, and I'm trying to be able to understand the schedule of timing. So I think that's where I'm at.
And as Ellie suggested, if we do it this way, we could have a study session in 30 days. I just don't want to know what to do. How are we going to get $775,000?
And then I'm a little confused because I just feel again like I don't have clarity of the situation at all, and concerning. But when I look at the interim budget report, the biggest decrease I see is in classified salaries, certificated salaries, and employee benefits of $725,984. So where are these other reductions that we've made besides not filling positions?
Well, it's in your multi-year, so it would be in next year, and we have 4 million going forward because remember your salaries go up every year, and your benefits go up in accordance with STRS and PERS. So we have identified 4 million that we are reducing. That are part of the second interim budget.
When I started working in this district in my 20s as a teacher, elementary school, I learned very quickly who the 3 most important people were that I needed to talk to: secretary, librarian, custodian. It hasn't changed. Classified runs the place. But the reality is we are constrained by the timelines and the budget. So as much as I dislike this option for right this moment, we don't have any options not to do it, to keep the budget balanced. Hopefully, in the next 30, 40, 50 days, we can rethink it.
All right, we'll break this down then. How do we not have other options? Why are we even here then? If we don't have any options, I don't understand.
I'll answer that.
That's not. I just don't like this broad brush, right? I mean, no offense to anybody, but that just seems ridiculous to me because what is my purpose if I don't have a choice?
All I can say is it's not scapegoating, it's math. And the fact that we had 3 charter schools approved by the previous board in 3 years, and this is not scapegoating, it's math. That's how we get our revenue. So I'm thankful to this board that we are one of the only boards, I think, in the state of California who challenged the validity of 2 questionable charters, and they surrendered those. We were looking at a loss of 300 jobs. And I take no joy in this. Nobody does. And we're hoping that the governor's budget, for all intents and purposes, is more positive. But if we could avoid this, we would. And
that's another confusing thing because I was here when Rocket Ship was approved, and we've had declining enrollment because whether it was Rocket Ship, East Bay Tech, or Liberty Union, or Brentwood Union, or Oakley Union, or Oakland Unified, we've had declining enrollment because our schools have not been performing, and our test scores are abysmal. So, I mean, whether it was that charter or something else, I mean, we've been having declining enrollment. So it just feels like we're just like there's just so much comments that are being made that just don't feel very truthful to me, or don't feel very transparent or honest. And I am supposed to put trust in the people that we're making decisions honestly, truthfully, and with the most accurate 100% of the information that we need to make the best possible decision. And I totally hear what everybody's saying. Nobody wants to cut anything, but all of these pieces they're not matching up to me. There's some dots that aren't being connected, and I think until we have a chance where we could sit down and as board members really look over this, figure out how these decisions were made, really look at the impact that Rocket Ship has had compared to maybe other inter-district transfers, out of
In
the
and out.
district, in and out. That I mean, I know these numbers very well. I mean, this is my life. This has been my life since 2013. Is looking at the numbers of this district, and so I just, again, I'm not saying that anybody's making this decision lightly, but we just have to. We have to be transparent with how we made those decisions and come together as a community to do that. So, I don't know.
I would like to say that it's not only our declining, but the whole state is declining enrollment, so that we're not just the only ones. Sure, our scores might not be as best as some, but we take all children, and you have to take care of all of them in any way you can. And so that affects us. There is some, as this particular school we're talking about has less. They could choose who they want. They could put whoever they want in there, and they can also put their time into it, a small little class size. I'm concerned about our numbers. That is something I'd like to see, how we can ratify that and change it. But we're stuck here where we have to make a decision. And I know it's not going to be a comfortable one for anybody. And it's not comfortable for us either. That we're required to do something financially. And that's where I'm going to go with. And I'm willing to come back and let's review this and see if we can put something back or at least adjust it. But we all have to work together on it. That's where I'm at.
So what happens, just theoretically, if this isn't approved? What happens? What are the next steps?
Well, if the $4 million that we have identified in the second interim.
No, the 700 and
I know, but
that
there's other ones in there. So if we don't do all of those, including the 775, we would have to find other ways to reduce and show the county how we're going to do that. Otherwise, our second interim report, our budget will not be balanced. We will not be able to show that we can afford our bills for the next 3 years, and then the county can come in and can the state. So it's our obligation, and again, I know I'm the one delivering the news. It's never an easy decision, but we are obligated to be able to show how we're going to meet our obligations for the next 3 years. And so what we've brought to you, both in the second interim and tonight by this reduction, is to do just that.
So the $4 million is over the course of 3 years with this resolution. Resolution 2018, 19, 23?
No, this resolution is $775 per year.
So what happens if we don't approve this resolution? This resolution. I'm not talking about the interim budget. I'm saying this resolution.
We would have to, in the second interim, this is included in that $4 million. So we would have to identify the other $775,000 that we are going to
So we would not be able to approve our interim budget tonight. We would be qualified. Not qualified. What would we be?
Well, right now, the second interim that we would have had earlier shows $4 million. So, I'm asking you to approve it later this evening as a positive budget.
And if we don't, we're qualified.
If we don't, I would have to see on the 775. I haven't done the math on that, but the $4 million, yes. And that's an ongoing cut from next year forward.
See, and that's the oversimplification, and these are nuances that I think are extremely important. Because to me, when I'm doing the math, because it is just numbers, 725,000, we're not going to be in the red that much, or really at all when I'm looking at this, because it's 4 million, and this is a little shy of $1 million, what we're talking about. And I think until you took this out and actually looked at these funding sheets, like how can it, that doesn't mean we don't have a choice. That means that we do have a choice. It means that we can't turn this in on time, but like what? I mean, we're talking about people's lives.
Well, and what's going to happen when the next group comes and says, we don't want to eliminate our prep? This is a challenge not only for tonight's exercise, it's going to get worse.
I know, and it's going to get worse across the state. And what I'm saying is that we can keep making these little cuts, but, it's going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts, and we're not going to be able to deliver the services that we need to deliver our young people. And if this is really what's going on, then we need to, really pressure Sacramento and our legislators who are making these budgets for us. I mean, we could keep cutting here and cutting a little bit here and cutting a little bit here, but as I said on Wednesday, it's like we're coming up to the edge of a cliff and constantly being pushed over and falling on sharp rocks. And I honestly feel right now like I'm flying a plane blind and the plane is on fire. And I don't know what's going on. So I'm just saying to say that we have to approve this and it's $4 million. These aren't things that are equating with one another to me. The particular resolution is about $700,000 and some change. And yes, if we don't approve this tonight, it's going to affect this budget. But maybe that is a signal to our legislators that just as we took a stand against rocket ship, we're taking a stand against the state as well to say we need this. How are we going to suffer? Nobody's explaining
No,
this.
what happens is the state comes in and they assign, what is the terminology?
Well, they can assign a trustee if it's a financial
And then we
issue
lose
or
all
an
of our power
administrative
here. We do not make decisions here. It's happened before in the past, and I don't want to get to that point.
So then that's immediately going to happen.
If we don't approve this, we're deep doo-doo, because we're not meeting the guidelines on timelines.
So there's no extensions.
But
That can be
but
made
what
from
I
the
suggested is that if we approve it tonight, we can still approve this, but then we have as you wanted, a study session. You have brought a lot to the table already. Let's have a study session. Let's talk to the unions. Let's have management get together and work as a team to figure out where can we find $775,000 for this exercise, where we can find more money for lower class size. I mean, it's just not this one issue tonight. As you said, it's a lot of issues.
I'm wondering when's the point we're going to actually take a stand against these things, against what's going on. I mean, this is a trend that's been going on for quite a long time since I've been a student in this district, and it's like we just keep pushing the buck along, and there's got to be a breaking point. And I think that if we're talking about trust, if we're talking about being competitive, if we're talking about all of these wonderful, lofty goals that we have, then I think that we have to build trust and be competitive, and I just don't think that this is
Get more
the
money,
way.
and we have unfunded federal mandates.
Yeah.
But at what point do we say we're going to use our school district to say we're not going to be solvent, and then that's what's going to happen if we can't balance that checkbook?
I would ask the board to approve this resolution this evening. And as your one employee, that is my recommendation. And so I'm sorry that it has to come to you to make this decision. And having worked in this district for 21 years, alongside some of these people, it gives me no pleasure. However, my number one responsibility is to make sure that we are fiscally solvent.
And I appreciate that, and I understand that. And as our one and only employee, I would ask in the future that we're included more on this process, and that we're not only given a week, and that we actually have some goals that are oriented around this, so that I feel comfortable when these things come to the table, that I actually am able to make these decisions. I know that in years past, there's been, to be honest, some lame ducks that have sat on this board, and I'm not one of those, and I refuse to ever be put in this position again where I feel like I'm having to make a decision with very limited and piecemeal information.
So I would welcome any questions that you have.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to? Do I have a motion to pass resolution 2018-1923?
Thank you. It gives me no pleasure.
It's very disturbing.
I make a motion to approve the resolution, but I would also like to come back and I will put it on a future agenda item where we can study this more in depth so that everyone is comfortable on the board and making the decision. So I do make the motion to approve.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I will second that because I agree that we need to review it. I think that we have to stand here and protect this district, and we're not going to be the loved ones. We know that, but that's why we were put in this place, is to make decisions that are hard, and that we all have to live with.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
3-1 passes.